So the first question sent in to the B was how much of the school budget is allocated to sports traveling teams? Perhaps the students who are on those teams should pay part of the way. Who would like to speak to that?
I'll speak to that. The sports teams at the high school, their budget is $526,000, and that includes all the teams with their travel costs and uniforms and coaching fees. The students do pay for play. Those funds do not affect our budget for the year that the sport takes place. However, it goes back to the town and affects the general fund. We are looking at the costs of sports and after-school activities and looking at some way to do a model that is very similar to what the band does currently in terms of having the parent corporations that would do fundraising. Lily, maybe you want to speak a little bit to that?
Well, I'm a band parent, so I had brought this up. It's not a perfect solution because it requires a lot of hard work by the parents, and obviously then it raises the fee to actually participate in that activity, sport, and there can be inequities in that. But it is something that we're investigating. I had found out that this is a model that California uses quite frequently. So in this kind of a budget season, obviously we're looking at everything. So we had asked Janet to investigate whether or not that could happen, specifically if parent corporation funds could pay the stipend of the coaches, which currently the marching band is not doing because of contractual reasons. So that's one of the hurdles we need to get over.
One of the big concerns also is the ability of some students who may not be able to pay to play, and maybe some hesitation on either the students or the parents to come forward and say, look, we would love to participate, but we can't afford it. And in this economy, you know, we've got things happening on both ends, and to ask people to pay more, it may not be possible for some students and parents. Next question sent in was, since some Newtown teachers may be laid off as a result of the new budget, why don't Newtown teachers show solidarity and agree during these hard times to freeze their pay for 1 or 2 years?
Actually, the teachers have agreed to freeze their pay. They have a new 3-year contract that was signed recently, and they have taken a 0 general wage increase and a 0 step increase, both of which would normally impact their take-home pay, their salary. So they are at 0 this year. The only increase is that this year they have 5 furlough days, and 3 of those furlough days will be put back in for next year, so that their only increase is about 1.6%, and that's simply due to working 3 additional days. But they have agreed to take 0.
And the 3 additional days were put in as part of the contract negotiations that achieved the 0 increase in the first year this summer.
The last question sent in by residents, and then I'm going to move on to 2 questions that each of you said you've heard multiple times. The last question was, the residents of Newtown are not experiencing an inflow of additional monies. So what makes the Board of Ed in particular think that the residents all have the ability to pay more? Do we really want defaulting on taxes to be an added reason to threaten our homes? Think about it. We all have learned to tighten our belts in some way. Shouldn't the town and the Board of Ed learn as well?
Well, I'll take that one. From a Board of Ed perspective, the residents are our parents. So we are concerned about that, obviously. And to build on what Janet said, that things go up. And we tried very hard this year to put our infrastructure cost out there from the very beginning with the Board of Finance, to let them know, you know, what we were trying to massage to get those prices down, which is a moving target, especially at this time of year when you're trying to lock in some of those costs. But if you take it back a step, when Janet met with our principals way back in the fall, she gave them the mission of zero-based budgeting, which means you take your budget and you don't necessarily do everything you did last year, you base it on today. When she brought us the budget, she had already taken teachers out based on enrollment, which is what this bill would be suggesting in the future. And the board itself then cut maintenance, cut computers, cut some of these other areas, cut professional development flat. So we did what we could to not impact education directly in light of the increased infrastructure costs that we knew were going to be there no matter what, as well as contractual obligations that we have relatively little control over. So As far as taxes, everyone pays taxes, including our parents. So it doesn't do the Board of Ed any good to come in and want to raise taxes unless we can justify it. And that's what we tried very hard this year to do, was to justify the part of the budget that was flexible.
Okay. And the last question that you said you've heard multiple times is, how do you address the constituents who are interested in voting no on the referendum because they want money added to the budget?
And this has come up, actually the last couple years it's come up as a question. And last night at our board meeting we had a discussion about it, and even on our board we're somewhat divided on it or undecided. I think it was 2 of us think we should vote yes, 2 think no, and 2 were undecided.
And that's true.
So it's difficult because I think that people who want to vote no really want to make a statement and say, you know, we do not agree with this budget. And then there's that group of people, and typically over the last 5 to 8 years, we've had about 2,500 maximum people come out and vote no on every budget. And those people, I would say, are the people that come out every year and they want more money cut out of the budget. So we've got to deal with that issue. We've also had the issue that we have trouble getting people to come to the polls. Mm-hmm. We've been maxing out at most 6,000 people coming to vote on the budget. So when you start that initiative to vote no because you want money added back, it dilutes the people who are voting yes because they don't want any more cuts, or yes, they agree with the budget. And it becomes almost a mathematical problem to, you know, you need enough people to get the vote passed, you need enough people to get the budget passed, and quite frankly, if we get any more cut out of our budget, it's gonna be, I think, disastrous. I think that they've cut enough, and I don't think that we could cut any more. That's not to say that the council may decide only to cut one side or the other, but what has happened historically is if the budget fails, it gets cut more. And what happened a couple years ago was the council felt that the budget was where it should be, and it got voted down. So they cut a little bit. And that upset the no voters, and more no people voted no more. There was a huge change, and more people came out and voted no. And so my fear in having this vote no initiative is it'll just make the budget fail, we won't get any money added back in, and we're gonna have to deal with another significant cut.
Either of you like to say anything else?
It's a very difficult issue. You know, I expressed my personal opinions last night that it's a high-risk scenario to vote no because of, I personally think, because of the time frame. Here we are 2 days before spring break for the schools, and the budget referendum is 2 days after the spring break. So you have to understand that if you vote no, and there historically additional cuts are made either to the school or the town side, but historically it's been the school side, then you have to keep voting no 4 times before you even get to a situation where Legislative Council would redo the budget at some level. So my concern is that for referendums throughout the summer, people are people and they'll lose interest. And I think it's a high-risk scenario to think that we can sustain that kind of an argument. I understand how people feel. I understand historically people feel their voices aren't heard. I think there are other avenues to make your voice heard, and if the advisory question is not added to the ballot tonight at Legislative Council, they still have to decide that tonight. But if they don't, then I think there's other ways what people can make their voice heard that isn't so risky, because I agree with Kathy. If we get additional, I mean, we're already in trouble. We already are looking at activities versus teachers, looking at all kinds of horrible scenarios, and additional cuts will only make that worse. So yes, we were conflicted as a board, and that's a shame. But I think that's somewhat indicative of everyone we represent. I don't think we were that far off where the public's at right now with this.